Okay, so we're going to begin by downloading this file, census F17. That means that's where we ended up from that census example. Remember the one where we had all the census data and we made it so you could pick a county and it would bring in the data for that county. We ended off the same place this semester as we did last semester, so I just left last semester's example up there. So download that one and that'll be where we start with our content which is working with chart objects. This is really kind of a fun day. So we'll have several fun things to work with as we learn how to use charts, as we learn how to automate charts. So while you're getting that file down and open, I just want to kind of first build a chart by hand to make sure that it's going to be the kind of chart that I want to make. And then we will record ourselves making a chart, which will give us our base code to work with, and then we'll see what we have to do to modify it. It turns out, folks, the very first time that I taught on making charts, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. Record yourself, it'll generate code, and no sweat. So, seriously, like the first time I ever taught the charts, like 2 hours before class, I thought I should probably figure this out. And for 2 hours, I struggled to understand it. And went in and was like, let's do something besides charts today. I couldn't figure it out. And there was one simple little thing that if I understood it, I would be like, oh, it makes so much more sense. And we're going to, for your luck, I'm going to teach that to you today. All right. So I'm just going to build a chart here. I wish I had a little more screen to stay. Yes, that'll do. I'm going to select some data, and then I'll select my headers. Oh, I'm assuming you know how to do a discontiguous range. Highlight the first one you want, hold down the control key, highlight another one, and that'll give you discontiguous range. So now I'm ready to insert a chart. So insert chart. I'm just going to use this column chart here. And I'm just going to use this very first one. There are fancier ones that we could use. Well, I'll select that first one. And that has given me a pretty good looking chart. I'm happy with that chart.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Not really. I can like do a quick zoom into something else. But you won't really need to see this code. Our code will still be normal size in it.
Okay.
So I kind of need room to have the chart over here off to the edge. Okay, so now that I feel like that's the style of the chart that I'm after, it's a pretty good chart. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to record myself doing that same thing. You'll all want to record along with me. We'll call it add chart. Shortcut key. I don't know, capital C, Control Shift C. Sure, we really need a shortcut key on it. All right, so I'm going to insert that same column chart, the first one. And that should be enough to get the chart built. And that'll be a good starting point for our code. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my recording, and we'll go look at that code. That's not the code. So view my project explorer, module 2. There we go. So I've got a subprocedure called add chart. Control Shift C will activate it. And here it is. Active sheet dot shapes dot add chart 2. I don't know what was wrong with add chart 1, but they gave up on it. Now they got add chart 2. Then we have two parameters here that control the way it works. 201. Huh. That's funny. I just realized I have no idea what 201 means. It's probably something about some kind of style of chart. We'll play with some of these parameters here. All right. So, this thing's called add chart. Now we got something a little bit weird here. That's definitely a method. Just listen to it. Sounds like a method, doesn't it? Add chart. Sounds like an activity. We pass it a couple of parameters, but then we have a dot select. What's going on? Why is this dot select afterwards? That's some method. I have a dot select after the method. What's going on? What does that mean about what's happening in the add chart 2 method? Well, first of all, I'll get you started. It's going to add a chart. But then what does it do?
It selects it.
Okay, this selects it. But I'm wondering what the add chart 2 method does. It creates the chart, and then for this select to work, there's got to be another step that happens. It creates the chart, and then it... Say it louder.
Returns an object.
Yeah, it returns an object. It returns a reference to that chart that it just created. And so right up to here, when this whole part executes up to here, that has given us that evaluates to a chart object. Which chart object? The one that was just created. And so the code is saying we'll create a chart, and then we're going to select that chart. And then from there on in the rest of our code, we're going to refer to that as the active chart. Active chart, whatever. Okay. So here's the question. Add chart. What kind of object does it return? You think it's a worksheet? No, it's not a worksheet. You think it's a range? Not a range. Chart. You would think it's a chart, and that was my problem. I thought, this is returning a chart. No, it's not. It's returning a shape. Look at this. It's a method of the shapes collection. What's a shape? Shape's like a line. Shape is this. You come in here and you say, insert shapes. That is a shape. That's a shape. It turns out that when you create a chart, it makes a chart, but it puts that chart in a shape. And that shape is what gets returned. So if you think you've got a reference to a chart right here, you are in trouble. Deep, deep trouble. You can spend hours and understand why your code won't work. There you go. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of selecting it, let's get rid of the select. And I'm also, I am going to dim SHP as a shape. And then we're going to set SHP equal to the results of the add chart method. So now, same thing. Add chart is going to make a chart and return the shape that contains the chart. And then that reference is going to get bound onto this variable. So now we can refer to the shape afterwards through this object. I love this next line. It's awesome. All right, so we're recording this line. We're setting the source data. This is what it's going to be. We get right to the recorder got right to this point, and it said, "Oh, this line's too long. We're going to have to split it." All right, put on a space, put on an underscore, and then on the next line, put a single character. Go back. Okay, thank you.
So, 82 characters. Is that as far as it'll go?
Well, you know, it can't split this string in the middle of the string, so it could be anywhere in where this string starts. My guess is it's 80, because 80 columns is kind of the standard page width in the world of coding. Question?
Does it matter if those two compares are switched?
Oh, so here we have a range that's giving a string to tell us where we are. Could these be in a different order? The answer is yes. But even more interestingly, this add chart to method, and I suspect that this is the difference between add chart and add chart to. Add chart to is sophisticated enough to look at what's selected and figure out how to build the chart. And so even though it's recording, setting this range in here for us, we don't need this line. I'm going to go ahead and delete, we comment out this line to start with. I don't want to delete it straight away. I mean, I just put those two lines onto one. For this to work, I have to have the right kind of data selected, so let me come back over. I'll delete this chart. Oh, I'll delete that shape too. I've got to have my data selected, so let me select something. And then I'll run my code. I've gotten rid of the one that says it's going to set. So all I'm doing now is adding the chart, and I'm binding a variable onto it. Even though I'm not setting the source range, it still builds that same chart. It's got the data. It's plotted that data onto this chart. So this only works because I've set the data. I've selected that data. It may be that you want to say, no, I don't want the data to ever have to be selected. Just add the chart, and then we'll go through all the configuration steps. But my experience says it's far better if you select the data you want for the chart, say add chart, and then you're done. I might still want to modify it, which we will go into. Okay, so now I'm going to delete that line. No longer necessary. Okay. Hey, while we're at it, well, let's go ahead and get the data selected. So here's the idea for this. Ultimately, I'm going to put a button here that just says Add Chart. And I'm going to be able to tell which chart I want to add by selecting, by the user is going to select a row. You select a row, and then hit Add Chart, and that's the row that we're going to build for the chart. I don't care which column you're on, but just as long as you're on that row. So we're going to have to figure out a couple of things. We're going to have to figure out what row the user has selected. We know the data is always going to start in column 2, because that's where we pump the data in when we add a new county. But we're not sure how many counties there's going to be. So we're going to have to figure out where the data ends. So let's get down to business. For both of those things, I'm going to need a variable. So let me dim row as an integer. Let me dim column as an integer. Row is easy. Row equals active cell.row. Column, not quite as easy. Any thoughts? You got to figure out which column the data ends in. Offset would help if I had a loop, and I was kind of offset by one check, offset by another one check, offset by another one check.
We do like XL to the right.
XL to the right, yeah, we can start to call. As long as we're safe assuming there's at least one column of data, I'm okay with that assumption. Then
Or
that should be okay.
we could go to like a really far cell on the right.
We can go way over here and then come to the left. But I still have a problem there if there's no data. My chart's not going to work if there's no data. So I'm going to go ahead with the assumption. Code's a little bit simpler if we start in column 1 and move over. So call is going to equal cells. We're just going to assume we're on the active sheet. I think that's an okay assumption. Cells is going to be row. I just set the active row to row. And column number 1. From there, we're going to say end XL to right. That is going to give me that cell. That's what I want. I think that's what I want. So we'll ask for the column. So now we know the 2 pieces of information we need to be able to start to get the data selected. So let's go ahead and select the data that has the numbers that we're going to chart. So let's do a range. We'll do a multi-cell range. Okay, we're going to use the 2-cell method to be able to create a multi-cell range. We're going to start in cells, row number row, column number. What column number do we start in? 2. The data always starts in column 2. So whatever row is selected, that's where going to be our first cell is. Here's the last cell, same row, different column. So that's going to be same row. Column number, call. And we'll select it. Let me go ahead and comment out the line that's creating the chart just for now. I'm just going to kind of work with the selection business. So far, so good. Got that one selected. I like it. All right, now we're ready to select a different one. Just copy that line. And now we want to go, this will always start in B2. It's always going to go to row 2 and end in column call. So that shouldn't be so hard either. So cells start in row number 2, column number 2. No, row number 1, column number 2. And in row number 2, column number column. So that should now then select the next one. Well, depending on where I am. So let me make sure I'm on a row that's got some data. There we go. And so that selects this. But the problem was, when I selected that, it unselected whatever data I had selected in the actual data. What am I going to do? How am I going to select a discontiguous multi-cell range? We haven't seen how to do it yet, but you're in luck. I'm going to show you right now. What's that?
Hold on. You put the range as
Oh, could we put
do
another range and just plop this one in for one, that one for the other? The answer is no. If I do a range and give it 2 arguments, even if it's multiple ranges, it's just going to say I want the whole thing between these ranges. But there's something else that does just that same way. It's called union. U-N-I-O-N. If you're from the South, no offense. There's no Confederate analogous to this. Union will let me take as many as 30 ranges and make a new range that is the union of those ranges. So I'll take the first. I don't need to dot select anymore, but I've got my first range there, comma. Let me bring up my second range without the select. Close the parentheses, and then select that one. So now I've got one multi-cell range, another multi-cell range, and I'm unioning those together, and we're selecting it. So now that should select that discontiguous range. Ah, it's delightful. That is kind of an ugly line, I'll admit it. Maybe the uglier the code is, the better I look in comparison. Questions? Yes.
So you select the entire union, but you don't need to select the parts of it individually, correct?
So the question is, so we're not selecting the individual parts, we're selecting the whole union, and the answer is yes. The argument that I'm passing to union, if I say select, it's not returning an object. It's actually kind of spending that object by selecting it. I actually have to have a reference to a range here. And so reference to one range, reference to another range, that will return a range that's the union of those two, and that's what I operate the selection method on. All right. Well, now we should be able to, I'm going to uncomment my shape, because now I've got that was the whole point. I want to get that range selected. So now I should be able to say add the shape. It should infer the data from the selected range, and we're in good shape. I'm going to make sure I've deleted my other charts that I have here. I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to put a button. Oh, wait, no, what do I have? Control-Shift?
C.
Control-Shift-C. Oh, how nice. So that built that chart. Now, I've got to have to put that chart somewhere else, but at least Control-Shift-C, it's building the chart. Not the same one. No, it's different. It looks similar because one's the percent and one's the actual, so they should be very similar. Okay, now here's the problem. I just looked at those two charts. I couldn't tell which one's which, so what do we have to do? Let's put the chart title on. Now, we've got a very nice title right here. It's just the label that we have in column A. So we're going to build, as soon as we build the chart, we can set the title. So SHP, that's the shape. That is the shape that contains the chart. It's not the chart. That's the shape. Good news, folks. Let's see. We've got a couple of charts here. So let me just snoop around for a bit. Shape, active sheet, shapes. .count. So we've got three shapes. I've got three shapes? Why do I have three shapes? Combo box of shape 2. So I've got shape number 1, shape 2, and shape 3. Now, so these shapes here, let's look at shape number 2. It has a property called has chart. I can look at any shape and I can say, does that have a chart? And that tells me -1. Let me convert that C to bool. I'm going to convert that to a Boolean value so I can read it. That means true. -1 means true. Whew. Let's look at shape number 1. That's false. There's no shape, there's no chart built into the combo box. It's good. What should I do if I drop down that combo box and there's a chart sitting there? So I can ask any shape if it has a chart. Not only that, but watch this. Let me print the type name of ActiveSheet.Shapes1. Type TYPE. There we go. So that tells us, hey, this object refers to, or this expression refers to an object of type shape. What would it put if I put in here has chart? What type is this going to be? I say it louder. Boolean, yeah. So that's, never mind, that's long. That's why I guess that's why I had to convert it to Boolean to be able to see that it meant true. Good. There's another property here called chart. That is that. Oh, there's no chart in shape 1. Let's go to shape 2. And that is a chart. And so there's a property of a shape that has a chart called chart, and that's going to be a reference to the chart itself. So I have to manipulate the chart, and that's what I have to get to be able to manipulate the title. So I use the shape, the chart, and then I can get to the title. Okay, so now after I've built the chart here, we're going to say shape dot chart, that gets to the chart that's in that shape, dot, all right, let's go to title, T-I-T, there's no title. Name, there's a name, that's actually not the title, it has a name, charts have names. Oh boy. A quick trip to Google would find the answer for us. First time I went looking for the title, I didn't Google it. I must have spent a half hour looking for it. Anyone find it yet? Chart title. What do we call the title of the chart? We don't call it title, we call it chart title. So, chart title. And then you might think, great, let's just put some title in here. No, you can't do that. Because the chart title is the little object that holds the title. If you want to change the text, you've got to add the text. Then you can put in what you want it to be. So, row number row, column number 1, dot. So now when we create that chart, it's going to build a chart using the data, it'll label the chart, it'll be a beautiful little chart. Question?
Can you do an object variable for the chart and bind it to the chart?
Of course you can. Let's take a look. Let's go ahead and do that. I wasn't going to do that, but you asked to do it. So, dim, CHRT, as a chart. CHRT as a chart. Now, we've set the shape equal to this. I'll now say set CHRT equal to what? What do I put here?
SHP.chart.
SHP.CHRT. So now I have a direct reference to that chart object. And so now instead of shape.chart, I just put CHRT. The truth is, we're done referring to the chart for this example. And so that was kind of a lot of overhead just for this one line. But you asked, and it's a reasonable thing to do. Question?
Should the SHP dot, should that have a name in it? You just wrote it. Set CHRT equals SHP dot chart.
Oh, you're exactly right. Thank you. CHART. Yeah. Because this is the chart property of the shape object. I'm so glad I have you here. Keep me from embarrassment. Was that your comment as well?
Yeah.
Anyone else have that comment? Okay. So now let's go ahead and give that one a shot. Here on this row, Control-Shift-E. No, Control-Shift-C. There we go. I've got a chart, and it's labeled. Oh, you know what I really want to do? I want to activate the next cell down when I'm done. So I can just hit Control-Shift-C and build a whole potload of charts. Just keep going. So when I'm done here, let's just activate the next cell down. I don't think we've ever done this in code, but I bet you can figure it out. Let's take 1 minute. See if you can figure out how to just say, whatever cell is active, I want to just activate the next cell down. 1 minute. Okay. It's like a thought exercise. And you do it. We don't have a timer, so I'll watch this. Okay, so let's take a look at how to do that. So, active cell. Dot offset. 1 row. I don't have to say the column if I don't need to, so I'll just leave that off. And then that will refer to the cell below the active cell. What do I want to do? Select. Activate would do okay as well. So now I can create charts to my heart's content just by hitting my hotkeys. Control-Shift-C. Next one, and it makes a different chart each time. Although I just realized I got to delete all these charts. I better quit while I'm ahead. Or I'll make a procedure to delete the charts. Ha ha ha! Let's go ahead and create a sub-procedure called delete charts. Sub, delete all charts. Yes. For years I did this example. We write a loop that looks through all the shapes, checks to see if they have a chart in the shape, and then deletes it if they do. And then a student pointed out to me, why don't you use the chart objects collection? I was all, huh? There's actually a collection called chart objects, so watch this. Active. Let me dim. This will help us put our IntelliSense. Let me dim S as a worksheet. Set S equal to the active sheet. S dot. Now we can get to that. Chart objects. This is all the shapes that have chart objects in them. It's a little confusing because it is a collection of, well, technically it's a collection of chart objects, but they're shapes. You can ask for the chart inside the chart object. And so I thought, oh, that's better. We just have to now loop through these and we just delete the first one until we're done there. That was even better. Then, a couple years later, a student said, why don't you just delete the whole collection? No looping involved. D-E-L-E-T-E. That's a pretty good idea, too. So that will delete all the chart objects. So that collection has a delete method. Most collections don't have a delete method. This is unusual. This one just says, delete all the objects. Okay, so delete all charts. Let me go ahead and put a couple of buttons on my form now, on my page. Truth is, my drop-down is way wider than it needs to be. I'm going to bring that smaller. And I will come to my Developer tab. I'll choose my toolbox. And I'm using the first control. This is the command button. There's a command button down here for ActiveX. Now that we've worked with user forms, these controls are really analogous to the user forms control. You can respond to events happening on these controls right here on your form. These up here, they're simpler. They're just going to run a macro. You got one event, and it's going to run a macro, and they guess at the event you want to use. Good news, for the command button, it's the right one. It's click. So I'm going to select that and then draw a little one here. What do you want to run? I'll go ahead and make a button for add chart. And I'll just call this new chart. And I'll do that process again for my delete chart. So developer, insert that button. It'll be delete all charts. And for the caption, I'll put clear charts. So I should be able to click that now, and it should just wipe the charts off the sheet. That's great. Okay, now create it to my heart's content. Clear them all. What's the problem with the way we're creating the charts now?
They create on top of each other.
They're in a really bad place. Not only are they on top of each other, they're on top of the data. Where do I want this chart to go? I want it to go right there. Where do I want the next one to go? Whoops. That's a great title now. Right below it. And right below it. And right below it. So let's get down to tackling that part. But I want to make sure that we're good to here, because if you're not good to this point, you won't be able to follow along. So let's take a little pause. Okay, so we're now kind of together and ready to move forward. There was a comment from a student that says, oh my gosh, what happens if you try to refer to the chart objects to delete it and there's no chart objects? So let's just try it. Clear charts, clear it again. Oh, error. What's the error here? It's okay, it's a runtime error. It's runtime error 1004, but I mean, what's the problem is it's trying to refer to chart objects, and chart objects isn't defined when there's no chart objects. There's no reference to it. The collection's gone. After all, you deleted it. It's gone. Well, good news, folks. If I have that error, I don't really need to do anything because it's gone. So what should I do? On error, resume next. So error away, I just don't want to hear about it. Okay, there was another question here. What was it?
My question was just, I don't know if there's anything you can do about having the button.
Oh, yes,
down
So
after you
question
start.
is, hey, let's just go ahead and do this. So I'm adding a chart, I'm having a great time. As I'm adding all these charts, the active cell moves down. Active cell moves down. What's going to happen when that active cell goes one more cell down? Page is going to scroll, and I lose my button. Now I'm clicking on the chart. That's not good. So what we're going to do is we're on the click event for this chart, we're also going to add the chart. I'm just kidding. We're not really going to do it. One solution, as long as you click on a chart, it keeps adding charts. So a couple of things. First of all, the real solution to that, I think, is press Control-Shift-C. We put a hotkey on it after all. Other option would be to push these things up just a bit. Make sure that they're in the top 2 rows. And then what am I going to do? Someone knows what am I going to do?
You freeze the rows.
Yeah, so I'll probably freeze them right. I guess I'll freeze it right here. I forget how to do that. View, is it view? Freeze panes. Freeze panes. Well, you got half the button. I was in the wrong place. Let me unfreeze the panes. Unfreeze panes. I got to go on left. View, freeze panes, freeze panes. Okay, so now when I arrow down, when it scrolls, it'll leave those buttons there at the top. I think that's probably the cleanest solution. Could we actually write code that figures out, oh, I just scrolled, move the button down a little bit to go with the scroll? Yeah, you can. The code's a nightmare. You've got to ask what the scroll position is of the window. It'll tell you. Freeze pane is a better solution. Okay, so now our next task is going to be to say, all right, we've just added that in. We want this one to go probably to start. Where do you want to start it? Do you want to start it off there or all the way at the top? Right here? I'm not sure what will happen if it's up there in the header.
It's up there, it'll break it. Lightning scrolling.
Oh, you're right.
I have a question really quick.
It actually makes these guys look a little more equal to each other. Question, what was it?
The freeze pane, sorry. So you select the top 2 rows. And then
Actually, no, what I did was I selected row number 3. I was in cell A3.
Oh, gotcha.
And I said freeze panes, and it says, aha, that's the part, everything above that cell is going to be. Okay, let me clear off my charts.
Whenever I do the add chart for the top line of data, it goes to Colbert and then doesn't move after that.
Okay, I didn't quite understand your question, but if I'm right here and hit new
Like
chart.
anywhere on the top row of data, I go and add chart and then it moves to Colbert and doesn't move after that. But if I'm on like the second one, it does.
How could you possibly get anywhere if your button goes away? Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, let's try that again. Let me come here and pin the charts. I'm on the first one. I'm going to run a new chart. You see this? I see the problem. You see this problem? Let me take off this part that's advancing here for a moment. There's a really simple solution to this problem. Okay, so let me hit new chart. Here's the chart. Get out of your chart. Okay, delete chart. And so that's my active cell here. But if I'm on the top row, I hit new chart and then delete chart. Delete the chart. Because that ends up being a contiguous range, this ends up being the active cell. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to read the active cell before I actually do that selection. Good news, I'm already reading the active cell, right? That's the first thing I do, I read the row. So instead of saying active cell.offset, I'm going to say cells sub row plus 1. I guess I want to stay on the same column, so active cell.column. .select. So what's happening is that when we union that range, because they're together, it goes, oh, we are all one range, and it makes the upper left-hand corner of the active cell. Thanks for noticing that. I had never experienced that before. It's probably been defective in all my prior code for years. Okay, so now let's give it a new shot. If I'm on this one, I have chart, separate function. Oh, that should be cells. It's now selected the next row down, and so I'm ready to build the next one. So a little different approach to selecting that. Very nice. All right, we got to figure out now how to position the left and the top of this chart. Here's the trick. We don't change the top and the left of the chart. The chart is taking up that whole shape. So what do we have to change? What do we have to change?
Shape.
The shape. We've got to move the shape. The chart will go with it. Okay, so let's declare a couple more variables for this. Let's go ahead and dim top as single. And left. And why single? Why not integer? Yes, because these are going to have decimals. As we're trying to figure out exactly where we want to be on the screen, it's not going to be an integer value. If you used integer, you would get kind of close, but then it would kind of bump over a little bit. Just better. All right, so again, why don't we do this? We'll do this the very first one. Let's start off just by giving these some values. Let's just say top. Let's do top equals. On prior examples, I haven't locked these top rows before. So I've always just dropped this right in at the top of the sheet. Now we want to put it at the top of row number 3. Trouble is, row number 3 is going to be in a different place depending on what? How tall the rows are. If someone says, you know what, I want these rows to be taller, they kind of stretch those rows out. All of a sudden, row number 3 doesn't start in the same place as it used to. So what we want to do is we want to ask where row number 3 starts. We can do that. In fact, let's do one more thing. Let's add ourselves a constant up here at the top. Const, let's give it a name, margin equals 5. So we don't want it to be right up against the top of the cell. We're going to give us 5 units, whatever those units are, to be able to work. So in this case, top is going to equal, we got to get to that third. They're rows, right? They're all the same height. So it doesn't really matter which cell we look at in the row. So I'm going to say range A3 dot top. So I can ask a cell what its top is, and it returns it in the same units that I use to position things onto the screen. And I will add on the margin. So you're used to working in a Cartesian plane, where if you're going down, the number gets smaller. The smaller the number goes, the lower it is. In Excel, it's the opposite. When you say the top is a big number, it's going to be lower on the page than. So we're adding the margin to it, and that's going to push it down. M-A-R, marring. M-A-R-G-I. Okay, question.
So can you can still like dim top like TOP as a variable even though it's like also property?
Oh yeah, are we allowed to make a variable that's the same name as a property? The answer is yes. That's totally fine. It's a little uncomfortable to you at first because you get a little confused over it. But the code is just fine. Can you imagine? Oh my heavens! Imagine if when I go to make a variable, I don't have to be worried about just what reserved words there are in VBA. But I can't make a variable reserved word. I got to be worried about any property that anyone might have used when they were creating an object that I'm using. It'll just be too much. So yeah, I can reuse that. And it does feel a little bit uncomfortable, but this is a good way to do it. Here's my top variable. I'm reading that off the top property. Question?
So why do we have to calculate the top?
The question is, why do we have to calculate the top? And the answer is, if I have a user come here and say, you know what, I want a little more space at the top here. Give me some more space. I need space. Now, if I had hard-coded that top of that third row, it's still going to be up here where it used to be. I want that chart to drop wherever this third row is. That's where I want it to go. So I'm going to ask, what's the top of the third row? So
What unit is that?
Row number 3 is still on it though. On this sheet we still have a row number 3.
yeah, here's row number 3. And right now, that's like, I don't know, that's like 50 TWIPs. The unit that we use here is a unit called TWIPs. It's kind of a weird unit. Why isn't it pixels? Because when you scroll, all of a sudden pixels are now a lot, it takes a lot more pixels to make a column here. And so we don't want to be tied to the actual size of the screen. So it's a new unit called TWIPs. This is about 50 TWIPs down. If I shorten this row, we go, oh, it's now 30 TWIPs down. It's really how far it is from the top of cell in row 1 to row 3. Let's just see it. So Control G, active cell, top. Right now it's 31.8. Oh, I feel so good. I said 30. That was so close. Now let's scroll this down. And now I'm going to ask active cell.top. It's 57. So if I just always told this, if I just always told I want the top to be 31, then it's going to go in that place regardless of where the row actually starts. So I'm going to ask it where the row starts, and then that'll be where we place the. Let's do something similar with left. So we've got top set there. Left is going to be range it's the second column, yeah. So B1 dot left plus margin. And again, the same thing. If someone resizes this column, I still want that to kind of float. Oh, wait a minute. It's not B1. What is it?
F3.
Yeah, I got to figure out. I got to go to the end of the data, not the start of the data. Ooh. So we better do that. I'm going to do these after we've got a column because that column is going to be helpful to us. So I'm going to move this down below where we've got the column. And so for this one, we're going to say cells, row number 1, column number what? Call. We're calculating the column that holds the last of the data. And so we're going to say, look at that one. Oh, and that's going to be the left of that column. So that's this column. Where's the left of this column? That's right here. I'm getting ready to put that chart right over this data. So unfortunately, there's not a right property. I can't ask for the right of the column. So what's the next best thing? Oh, I could say, that's good. I could take the left of the column plus the width of the column. But I heard another one over here that involved a plus.
Column plus 1.
Yeah, col plus 1. Just look at the next column over. Ask for the left of the next column over. So col plus 1. Okay, so I've established these, and now let me go set them, and we'll take your question. So I can't actually set them until the chart is built. So at this point, I'll do it after I put the title in. Go before the title, that's fine. So do I say chart dot left, or do I say shape dot left? SHP, shape dot left equals left. Shape dot top equals top. Now I should be able to run that, and it should put these not where they default to, but it should put it right over here in a beautiful little position. There's the chart. Oh, and it is so beautiful.
Why do we use the shape again instead of the chart object when referring to its position?
The question is, why are we using shape instead of chart when referring to its position? The answer is, the chart does not have a left property. The chart doesn't have a top property. The chart is going to fill up whatever shape I put it into. Oh, it seems like I should be on a different place to be able to build it. There we go. And so the way a chart works is that it goes wherever the shape that it is contained in goes. All right, there's a question over here.
Just a quick question about cells. So when you're, like you said earlier, if we don't need a column value, we can just omit it and not use it. Could you just comma out the row value if you really don't care what the row is?
So what if we just
left?
got rid of this? Then that would say it's the first. It would say the first cell. It doesn't know it's a column anymore. Oh, could you do this?
Yeah, you just use comma.
Oh, put the comma. I don't think so. Now I think it needs to know. It doesn't have any reason to think, oh, I'm going to fill that in with the row of the active cell. There's no reason for it to infer. Okay. All right. Well, when we're creating the very first chart, we got it down, but we got more to do. So what do we have to talk to me? Speak to me English. Speak English to me now. Where do we need the next chart to go? Not in VBA, but in English. It needs to go right below where that first one is. So if there are no charts, we've got this one right. So let's go ahead and let's build an if statement to handle it. We've already got that situation written. So if, right here where we're setting our top and left, if active sheet dot chart objects dot count equals 0, then we do this. Otherwise, we'll do something else. All right. Questions? Your question here? No. Okay. So now, what do we do? Well, our left. Oh, this is something neat. Okay, so our top. Let's figure out the top first. Top is going to be what?
Bottom. It'll be the bottom of the shape.
Yeah, we've got the bottom of our last shape. Of our most recently placed chart, the last chart, we've got to find the bottom. Again, there's no bottom property. What do? Top plus height. But these lines are going to get kind of long, so let me do a couple of things that will shorten things down for us. Let me declare S as a worksheet. And this is really just to help my code be a little bit shorter. And let me dim CH. I need chart count. Let's call it CC as an integer. So we start off by setting S equal to worksheets. What's the name of our worksheet? Compare. And then let's let CC equal s.chart_objects.count. So this is just to help us our code be a little bit shorter so I can fit on this screen. So now instead of active sheet.chartObjects.count, what can I put here?
CC.
Yeah, CC, my chart count. If my chart count is 0, then we're going to do something. Now we're getting ready to figure out what the top's going to be. Okay, question here. No question? In the front? Is there a question?
Oh, yeah. I just have to ask this now. When you set the margin equal to 5, what unit is that in? Is it in pixels?
It's not. It's definitely not pixels because this will that margin will grow or shrink depending on how far we're zoomed in. Microsoft uses a unit called TWIPS, but I'm not sure if that's actually the unit that it's using here or not. You can make up a unit if you want and just realize, that's the unit relative to the screen.
Oh, okay.
So the point is, when I zoom, the size of that unit changes with the zoom.
Oh, all right.
There's probably a name for it. I'm not sure what it is. Okay, so our top is going to be. We got to get to our chart objects. Most recently had chart object. So that's going to be s.chartObjects chart counts. Chart count. So the number of charts is going to be the very last chart object in that collection. It's going to be that top plus the height.
Margin.
Margin. And let's just set the left equal to the left of the most recently added chart. So we're going to say the left is going to be whatever the last one added was, that's going to be the left. And then top we're going to have to figure out. So now, if we go add those, let me clear my charts, you should be able to add new charts to my heart's content. And you should just keep putting them down right below, one right below that. Very nicely organized. I'm very pleased with the appearance of this so far. I will go back to the code. Questions? All right, I know some of you are still kind of comparing to this code and getting your code going. I want to make one more modification to what we're doing here, and that is, well, on this screen I don't have any more width, but on most of your screens I suppose that you have more width to the right. You can only get like maybe 3 or 4 charts showing, and then they're going off, but you have some extra screen estate off to the right. And so I'd like to make this go to where it's going to go down a little bit, and then it's going to move over. And that'll be a setting that we can set. Maybe go down 3 and then move over. Go down 3 more and then move over. So let's go ahead and set another constant for us. I'm going to call this chart rows. How many rows of charts do we want? And I'll make that 3. So we'll go down 3 charts. We're done. Get to the bottom of the rows. When that happens, we want to go up, move over, and put the next 3 in. Go up, move over, put the next 3 in. And then, of course, if we change this to 5 or 6, it'll just increase how many rows we generate before we go up. So our challenge is, so we know that it's not when there's no chart, when our chart object count is 0, we don't have to worry about moving over. But that's always going to go right here at the top and right here next to the left. So now, if it's not 0, we've got to check to see, are we looking at, have we just put the 3rd one in? In this case, chart rows. So we put chart rows in, the 3rd row. How can we tell? Mod, yeah. So this is a review of mod real quick. So if I have 2 mod 3, so if I take 2 and divide it by 3, what's the answer?
0.
Yeah. How many times does 3 go into 2?
0.
0 with a remainder of
2.
2. Yeah, so that's what mod's telling us. So 3 goes into 2 0 times, but remainder is all we're interested in. So if I'm on 1, no good. If I'm on 2, no good. If I'm on 3, 3 mod 3 is 0. Okay, so that's good. 4 mod 3 is 1. 5 mod 3, 2. 6 mod 3 is 0. So that'd be my 1, 2, 3, last one jump over. 4, 5, 6, last one jump over. So anytime I take the number of my chart objects and I mod it by 3, if that gives me 0, that means I've got the 3rd one. I've got the 3rd one in. So let's do this. In our code, we're going to say if chart count mod, what's it called? I forgot. Chart rows equals 0. Oops, that's a lowercase o. What was it when I put the O and the 0 right next to each other? Then we're going to do something. Let's see. In that case, we're going to do something. Otherwise, we're going to do this. Okay, so if that's the case, we've got the 3 there. We're trying to figure out where to put the 4th one. Where's top going to be? The same as our first one. Yeah, so that's easy. Copy and paste. But now, where is our left going to be? Yeah, it'll be the left of okay, the idea here is the left of the first one. That's right. The left of the first one plus the width of the first one plus a margin. That will do great until what?
Until you go to the third set.
Until I get to the third column, and then I'll plop it right on top of this one. But I don't care about up and down. All I care is right and left. So what can I look at? Most recently added one. If I can ask for the left of the most recently added one, then when I get to the second column, I come down here, and I'm ready to move over. So good. So in fact, that's going to look just like our top from here, except it's going to be left. So I'm going to copy this one and say our left is going to equal my most recently added one's left plus my most recently added one's width plus the margin. Oh, wow. That is fabulous. It's a great nested if statement that is fulfilling its purpose in life. Now, I know it's a lot of code. You probably still need to kind of look at this and follow it. But let me go ahead and first make sure that it works. Yeah, because mine didn't what you said. Uh-oh, I'm nervous now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I'm happy. And if we change that constant, oh, I went too far. If we change that constant from 3 to 5, then it should just let me have more rows. Clear, zoom in, and back to the code.
When you go up a little bit.
Did I get it? And at this point, I feel pretty darn good about this example. One more thing I'd like to do, just because while we're working on charts, it's a fabulous thing to know about. And that is, I'd like to be able to export these charts as graphics. It can be really handy if I've got a bunch of charts. I've just generated a whole bunch of charts. I've got to bring them to a PowerPoint kind of a thing. I don't want to actually have the workbook there, so it can be a linked object. I just want it to be self-standing. Or I've got to put some stuff onto a website or something. So, are we ready to move on from this example? Tell me how you want to do it. Do you want to create code that exports the currently selected chart, or do you want to create code that exports all of the charts? All the charts? Both. Once you do one, well, okay, if we do all of them, you'll see how to do one at a time pretty easily. Sub, export all charts. DMCHR chart system CO as a chart object. This would be a good example for us to use our for each loop, which we don't have a whole lot of practice with. For each CO in active sheet.chartObjects. Next. Remember, the for next loop takes an integer control variable and says it's going to move across a range. The first time through the loop it's 1, the second time through the loop it's 2, the second time through the loop it's 3. The for each loop is going to say, oh, I've got an object variable here, and I've got a collection here. First time through the loop, bind this object variable onto the first element of this collection. Second time through the loop, bind this object variable onto the second object in this collection. So let's just start off with debug.print ch.name. Ch, oh yes, we see it. Chart object. Ooh, chart object. Chart object have a name? We're going to find out here shortly. So now, I don't have any. So let me get a couple of charts on here. Where is chart? Chart. 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 I got 4 charts. So now if I run this, it should print off the names of those charts. Not the best names in the world, but they'll at least keep us from having 2 chart objects with the same name. Two files that we're creating with the same name. Let's go ahead and print not just the name, but let's print the full path to this file that we're going to create. So that's going to be this workbook. dot path concatenated with the application dot path separator concatenated with our name concatenated with dot png. So that png needs to be inside the quotes. All right. So now if I run that, it should print the same thing and just should be a full path. That's where it's going to try to save that file once I actually get there. We're okay with the for each loop. How is it? All I ever print is co.name and it prints something different each time. Because this control variable is getting bound onto a different element in this collection each time. It's magical. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. CO is going to reference that chart object. CO dot. Oh no, is there an export? Is there a chart? Okay. co.chart.export. I give it a name, and I give it the type that I want it to be, PNG. If I run that, it should export those 4 charts. Go back to, this is my documents. There they are. There's the 4 charts that I just exported. They're just image, PNG image file. Name that we have.
And they're the same size as they appear on the screen.
So they're the same size as they are on the screen. I believe that's right. So if I make the chart bigger on the screen, it'll export as a bigger graphic. And how do we make the chart bigger? Change the height and width of the shape that contains the chart. And they'll go big. Oh, against all odds, we have time to show how to save just the selected chart. Go ahead.
Some of my charts actually came out as 0 kilobytes in the size.
Let's take a look at mine.
Mine.
Mine are, let's see. Mine are all a respectable size. Yours are not. We'll take a look after class. One more example, then we'll be done. We might end a couple minutes early.
Okay.
So I'm just going to copy export all charts to export current chart. Export current, let's see. Active chart. I think active chart is what the object is called. So we don't need looping for this. We'll get rid of all the looping stuff. And so instead of CO, I'm just going to say active chart. Just like there's an active sheet method, there's an active chart. If I have a chart selected, it will do it now. If I don't have an active chart selected, I'm in trouble. So we can do this on error, resume next. So now I should be able to select one of these. Make a new chart. I'm going to select my new chart. I'm going to run that, and hopefully it'll give me a 5th chart out there. Oh, that needs to be active chart. Active chart. Although CO doesn't have I haven't set it to anything. So I'm going to make this my active chart. Chart. So I don't have to say active chart.chart.export. Active chart.export is fine. And then we're using active chart.name to name. So let me go ahead and delete my chart. Run this code again. And now it has brought in that chart we just had selected. Okay, so we've done some interesting things with charts today. Click the button and now it generates a very nice grid of charts. We could add buttons to export all these charts or export the active chart, and we're in great shape. So that's enough for today.